Alright, so we have finally wrapped up the pink Cuda. It's been a really good process for us. Pretty straightforward, no surprises other than a couple we'll cover here later on in the video. Total, we have about 40 hours in the swap, which is about typical. If you're a go-getter, you can get it knocked out in a weekend. For us, it took about a month because we took time to video and document a lot of stuff. And then we had two snags that we really want to talk about. The first one is the original 340 that came out of this car was a later model. So it's from like 1973, the only year for an externally balanced 340. So as we found out, we got the engine in place and transmission, everything bolted back in. I was bolting up the torque converter bolts and I noticed that it had a counterbalanced torque converter. So the transmission had to come back out. We had to get an internally balanced torque converter to match, all the Gen 3 Hemi stuff is internally balanced, just like the, 67 through 71, 72, blah, blah, all that stuff, right? All right, so here we are underneath the car. We're going to go over a couple things that we thought would be important for you all at home. First thing is we use the TTI headers, as you have seen, and it was almost a perfect matchup to the existing X-pipe exhaust for the small block. So the only thing we had to do is trim these two mid pipes, just cut them down shorter in length because of the length of the collector pieces right here, this reducer that went down from 3" to about 2.5. We just had to chop them down, maybe 10 minutes of work, and the exhaust was bolted all back up. So that was really nice. When you do run the TTI headers, you are going to have to cut the shifter bracket and overlap it by about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. So that's why you see a bead of weld here, and this overlaps. So it pulls the shifter bracket in just a tad so it can clear everything when you're shifting. Down here you can see the whole purpose why we use a center sump oil pan. So if you had a forward sump oil pan, it would hit the K-member up front. If you had a rear mount sump pan from, let's say, a pickup truck or a Jeep, it would hit the steering link here in the back. Okay, so that's why you need the center sump oil pan. It places directly between the steering link and the K-member. We even reused the factory 340 starter on this car. It bolted right in with no problems whatsoever. One thing we had an issue with, and we alluded to it earlier, is our big, I would say, discovery, or this car came with a 1973 date-coded 340, the last year of 340 cubic inch V8 production. The problem is, in that year, they went from internally balanced to externally balanced. So they required a special counterweighted torque converter on the input of the transmission and a counterweighted crank pulley. We did not realize that until the powertrain was completely in the car. New Hemis are internally balanced, so this would have caused vibrations and a lot of problems. Luckily, when we were putting the torque converter bolts in, we noticed the counterweights, the blocks of metal kind of welded to the torque converter, and we immediately realized the situation. We were under the impression that, hey, it's a 340, it's internally balanced. That's the way it was from 67 through, like, say, 71, 72. It caught us off guard, and we had to remove the transmission after already installing it and buy a new internally balanced torque converter. So this thing now has a B&M whole shot 2500 RPM torque converter. We really like it. It rides really nice. It's not too aggressive to where it's not street friendly, but it really helps with the 450, 425 horsepower that this thing's putting out, and it has great street manner. So keep that in mind. If you have a 360 cubic inch V8 or a late 340, make sure that it is internally balanced on your transmission. If you don't have an internally balanced torque converter, you need to get one. You will get a lot of vibrations and possibly damage your Hemi or transmission if you try to run it that way.
You have to get some extensions, some OBD.
That's it.
Some oxygen sensor extensions on there.
That's true. So this is another thing that we had to do because of the long tubes. Factory collectors or manifolds, the oxygen sensor was further forward. So when running long tubes, you have to extend the length of the oxygen sensor wires For this setup, so using the TTI long tube headers, and this also goes for, like say your Black Hearts from Holley and whatnot, you're going to want to extend the wiring harness for the oxygen sensors. We use Casper Electronics 12-inch or 1-foot extension harness. They're really plug and play. It just snaps in on one side on the engine harness and snaps in on the other side of the oxygen sensor. So it extends the length of the oxygen sensor wires so you don't have to do any cutting or crimping. It's really quick, really trick.
So transmission bolted right up where it was before. No changes there.
No transmission changes, no. Drive shaft's the same as it was before, not an issue. Suspension, all this is exactly as it was, not an issue at all. Here you can see where we have the coolant hoses. So these are the AC hoses. We have them run along the bottom of the K-member, kind of cradled behind this brace. Just really keeping them secured out of the way, nice and neatly ran. Because down here the AC compressor is low on the Hemis, on the car app. So we just run longer hoses for suction and discharge. And you run the Hemi air conditioner compressor fitting adapters, which you can see from right here, right?
Let's check those
These
out.
are the adapter fittings that allow it to go from the Denso, which is the standard Hemi AC compressor, to your typical O-ring 10 and O-ring 8 fitting. That's it. Put a charge on it and let it run.
Very clean. Very clean swap. 6.1. 6.1 Cuda.
That's it, man.
She's a paint punisher now.
Yeah. We definitely need some better tires on the back because there is zero traction.
Yeah, what is this? Got some BF Good wrench radials.
Maybe they're dated.
I think they're dated.
This is old.
Yeah. Yeah, the rubber feels a little hard.
It does feel a little hard. It could be. Yeah, you know what? It looks like 2009, 34th week of 2009.
Ooh.
So I would definitely replace these.
Yep.
Those are some old tires.
Yep, we'll let the owner know.
Yeah. That might be why we get zero traction.
Yeah, you want to enjoy this car, especially after this, man. Beautiful ride. Great job, Blake.
Good fun, man.
See you guys on the next one. Please like and subscribe.